The way I met Malika was that Snarky Puppy was playing in Montreal, and we had finished our sound check and we were getting ready to leave the venue in this little Haitian club called Lambi that we were playing at for, I don't know, 150 people or something. And the opening band got on stage and started sound checking. Malika was the singer. It was a band called Ground Food, and the band just kind of stopped leaving and just stood and watched the sound check. So then we met the band and talked with them and everything and became friends, and we stayed in touch.
Yeah.
And then when we did Family Dinner Volume 1, Malika was like one of the first people I invited to be a part of it. And then when I had the idea to start this band, as far as like singing went, Malika was pretty much the only person that I thought.
No, he's lying.
She was like the 20th call I made, but she was more available than everybody else, you know.
We all met at the studio, actually. Well, he knew everybody, but I did not. And that's where all the magic happened, and we only saw that it was working at the studio.
Yeah, but the fact that the music was done, you know, Malika and I wrote the music like by email, which is really funny. I would write something, email it, she would write something, send it back.
Exactly.
But it was all done by the time we went into the studio. Unlike this record.
Unlike this record.
Which is a little different of a process. But it's really funny
because the music this time is like pretty crazy. And you know, he was like in Turkey writing music and not thinking about me having to write to this music.
But we also got together in Spain. We like met and got together and actually wrote in the same room for like 2 days. And then we were able to kind of build off of that. But I mean, things are always at least whenever Jules and I work together, things are always last minute.
And this time, some of the compositions didn't even exist.
Oh my God.
It came together.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's good. I mean, when you have a good crew, you know, of people around, you can do things at the very last moment. And
but there's like an element of like improv that is cool too when you write stuff like last minute. Like in the first Bokanté album, actually there was one song that wasn't entirely written because I wanted it to be like just sounds, and Michael was like, no, you're gonna put lyrics onto this song.
The nice thing is sometimes it removes that kind of choice process a bit, doesn't it? You stop thinking so much about are you going to go left or right.
Exactly.
You just put down. So I think there's a lot of really striking, super strong melodies, and maybe you would have overthought that stuff, you know, if you had more time. Yeah. So this is a lesson in a way for all budding.
Don't be prepared.
No. Don't be prepared.
Just average. So in this case, the music is designed around our focal point, which is Malika, you know, and a lot of the melodies or lyrics weren't done until very recently.
No, all the melodies were done. It's only the lyrics that were not done.
But you know, because these things weren't done, it allowed Jules and I as arrangers to really say, well, you know, let's throw some serious melodic sections to the orchestra and just let the orchestra take it, you know. So I don't really think of it like Bokanté with the orchestra behind or something. I do think of it as equal parts, but I think of the order of operation as different. Yeah. It was like, let's do the band and then the vocal and then the orchestra, you know, and think of it kind of that way.
And this is more like really making a record, isn't it? You know, like this is like starting from scratch, building everything, all these different strands. I think that process is something I really love, you know, like when you look at what you started with and what you come to at the end. And that will also ultimately probably create two different entities, right? We'll have the record, but we'll have the live show, and they'll be quite different, I think.
Well, I've never had the experience of working with the Metropole in an environment like this, where we really get to sit down and record one kind of thing at a time and check it out and say, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, it's always been this kind of like, all right, you have one rehearsal and then 4 gigs, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really nice to explore different possibilities for an orchestra, because I also want the role of the orchestra on this album to be different than in most settings, and the orchestra is this is the perfect orchestra to do that with. On this record there's a lot of moments in which the orchestra is playing with Malika, you know, like singing with her, and that's something that you can't do with a lot of orchestras. I mean, there's one tune where I basically transcribed a really weird solo that Bob Lanzetti, our guitarist, took with like an E-bow and a sheet of paper on an acoustic guitar, and it sounds crazy. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just transcribe it exactly with all the weird slides and glisses and stops and just give it to the strings, and they'll be able to play it. On the first record, it was Malika. It was the vocals were providing the color, and on this record, I think it's both the vocals and the orchestra. It's almost like having two singers, which is really, really cool.